2 years ago, a young 10-year-old boy was grabbed off a trampoline up in Morris. One of the neighbors came over and beat this bear off with a rake. The bear had the child right by the abdomen, because when a bear goes to kill you, it doesn't kill you, it eats you.
Welcome to Lock and Load Podcast. My name is Josh.
And I'm Michelle.
And we are here to talk to you about Connecticut 2A issues. Today, our special guest is Keith Kegel, the president of Friends of Connecticut Sportsmen. Keith, why don't you give a little bio about yourself?
First off, thanks for having me on, Josh and Michelle.
Thank you for coming on.
So I'm Keith Kegel, president of Friends of Connecticut Sportsmen. I'm one of the founding members of this. We really don't have members. We have a board that oversees it, and we've had different sportsmen's clubs throughout the state that have been financially backing us since we started. We're always looking for more. I got started in this. I was at a meeting of my local gun club, Fairfield County Fish and Game, right from Sandy Hook, Connecticut, ground zero of world gun control. We're at the meeting, and an old timer stood up and said, "You know, I go to Hartford and I fight every year." He says, "and I don't have anybody to help me." He says, "Isn't there one guy in this room that has a little bit of fight left in him?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I have a little bit of fight in me." So I volunteered to go, and I started going to Hartford to what they call the Connecticut, then it was just called the Conservation Advisory Council. It was a committee of people that had influences over other larger amounts of people. This was started in 1972, long before Al Gore invented the internet, and it was a pretty good thing then. And you would have people from the bigger clubs that had a seat on this council, and they would disseminate information back and forth between the clubs and the Department of Environmental Protection. That's what it was then. There was no extra E in it. And all the different regulations that were going to be changed for hunting, fishing, and trapping laws all went through this council. They were all discussed there and are still discussed to this day at this council, except now it's called the Connecticut Conservation Advisory Council. We meet once a month, and I've been the sitting chairman of that for the past 10 years. 6 years ago, I was approached by members of the legislature that said, you need to start a nonprofit. You have to have a nonprofit. You need a professional in the building. Bob Crook had been out of the business for about 5 years. He says, you need professional help. Not having a lobbyist in Hartford is like going to court without a lawyer. You're really not going to get any place because you have no idea how it goes in the back rooms there. And there's a lot that goes on in the back rooms. To me, the public testimony is a lot of theater, and you'll see a lot of paid actors and actresses there. But when you get right to where the meat and potatoes of it is, it's in the back rooms. So as I developed a relationship with different legislators by going back and forth to Hartford to testify in different hunting bills, it really became apparent that we had to have a lobbyist. And this was before we formed the organization, when we were going to testify from the Conservation Advisory Council. So we got all our paperwork in order. We picked 6 guys that sat on the Conservation Council, and we formed Friends of Connecticut Sportsmen. That's how it got going. And it seems like when everybody took one step back of who's going to be the president of this thing, I was standing in the front. So,
but that has to be exciting to be from the ground floor up and building that.
I think it's pretty exciting. So since the Conservation Advisory Council had a chairman, a vice chair, and a secretary, we never had a treasurer because no money was ever collected or changed hands. So that's where the tricky part came from. So after fighting this fight for quite a few years in Hartford, some people knew me, some people not so much, but I had a pretty good following from the Conservation Advisory Council. This is how I got involved with CCDL. Scott Wilson called me one day and said, "You know, you seem to have a pretty good connection with most of the gun clubs in the state." He said, "Would you be interested in being a CCDL executive?" I says, "I absolutely would be interested in that." And it's been really, really informative to be around. I spent a lot of time with Scott, with Chris Lemos, with Robert Chambers, guys that were founding members of the organization. We're just great guys. We all kind of learned together. I was able to raise a substantial amount of money after SB 1160. People knew who I was. So going back to Friends, when we got Friends going, we said, how are we going to fund this? I said, well, you just can't walk up to a stranger and say, I'm going to get this going. They don't know me from Adam, but they had a pretty good idea I was. So when we started to I always say, I don't have fundraisers because homeless people, they don't have a fundraiser. They just beg for the money. So I begged for the money to get enough going to where we could hire a lobbyist. And we settled on, we interviewed some people. And then Joe Laporta, that sits on the board with us after his failed run for the Senate, I said, don't waste your time doing that. Come here and help us where you could be a lot more effective. And he agreed. And Joe was with us, had been with us now for a few years. And he's a really welcome addition to have some young blood involved as well. And that's the way we did it. We went to all the different clubs and I started out at my own club, and the maximum that you can give without reporting as a lobbyist yourself is $3,000. So Fairfield County Fish and Game, God bless them, has given us $2,999 every year, as has the Northwest Council, Northwest Sportsmen, Rockville Fish and Game, and way too many other clubs to mention with smaller donations. I'm not trying to slight anybody, but that's how we got it going, and this is how we pay our lobbyists. This year, we're finally going to have our own fundraising dinner on March 21st, as well as we got our website going, friendsofctsportsmen.com, where you can sign up to get our monthly, not really monthly, it's almost a daily newsletter with the updates coming out of the Capitol. Our lobbyist keeps us very well informed, and that's kind of where we're at with that. She does a remarkable job. We go up and testify, because as much as she can get done herself, she gets done. And then she needs help from us. Sometimes you just need massive numbers when you're going to turn out against animal rights activists. And the big thing that we really lobby for is hunters and trappers. They're always trying to stop hunting and trapping. This year, it looks like, they had a bill on a moratorium on striped bass in the lower Housatonic River. Just a crazy thought. Some rep came up with it that, we know that it's people fishing for a certain ethnic market out of Flushing, New York, and they don't want to hold them on ice retainers or anything else, and they're not finding them enough that it's not just a cost of doing business. So we lobbied to get more NCOM police officers, and we're hoping to solve this problem on the poaching. When I asked them, do you think it would be a good idea to close 91 because people speed on it? He looked at me like I had three heads. I said, I could guarantee I don't, but there's people speeding, and we're not using the same logic here. Life is about logic.
Well, and I had seen that bill, and they were talking about it was the fact that they said the numbers were lessened. They didn't talk about what you just said. So, and I was like, striped bass, are they being fished out? Like, I didn't think that they were, but I guess that if you're having that kind of an issue, it might have been an issue with it. But so is that bill dead?
Not yet.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, Deep sent a deputy commissioner and the bureau chief, and he's a former head of fisheries, said that we don't have a bass population problem. We have a poaching problem.
So they were just trying, instead of actually fixing the poaching problem, they just figured they'd stop fishing.
They just keep law-abiding fishermen from fishing.
Well,
the same things we see with gun owners. They never, ever go after the criminals. They only ever go after the law-abiding citizens.
Oh, yeah. Well, and if it works on one, it might work on all of them. Let's just go with it. I agree.
While you were talking here, I was thinking, I feel like you're very well connected with the gun clubs.
Very
right?
well.
So the like the fishing game kind of clubs and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then I feel like CCDL kind of hits like the gun stores. Is that a fair estimate?
Well,
I know they trickle in, especially with Dave. Dave
Right,
does some
Bicknell.
club stuff.
Yep.
I feel like they hit the stores more, and like maybe that's where they commingle here?
We commingle to a degree. You know, there was in the past have been, I won't call them animal rights activists, but at least animal lovers. And people that know me know that I'm an animal lover, that nobody has it better than my dogs. But they couldn't understand hunting enough. CC Dale was a tremendous voice for the 2A community. But as Chris Lemos would say, every chance he got, every other word, we just stick to the Second Amendment. That's it. It's 2A, not trapping, not fishing, not hunting, 2A. So that's why there was a need to form this other organization.
So pre SB 1160, so the Sandy Hook ban. What I've heard in the past is that you're the hunting guys, right? The hunting guys, the trap guys, the concealed carry guys, the black powder guys. No one ever talked. No one ever commingled, right? It's that the broken snake.
You still have some of that though, right, Keith? I mean, you can say that.
There's a lot of that. I brought the message of inclusion to all of us, that we're all the same, that there's no reason to fight amongst ourselves. And I've seen it between the fly rod guys and the surf casting guys and the traditional bow guys and the crossbow guys.
Yeah. I mean, I belong to, we'll just say, a fishing game. And there's definitely a deviation between the pistol rifle guys and the field guys.
Look at even the hunters or just the regular rifle guys compared to the AR guys. We don't like the black guns, but you know, the guys with the black guns go, I don't really like the bolt actions because those are just rifles. It's one of those things where people don't
it's clicky, and it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. And I preach the message of inclusion, that we're all the same.
Yeah.
Well, and if it hurts one group, even if you don't participate, okay, if you're not a hunter, you're not a fisher, you don't.
Well, that was the whole problem with SB 1160. And they're like, oh, this isn't going to affect me. Now you can't buy ammo without a permit.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
People just need to pay attention. Everything that they do affects every one of us, no matter how we choose to utilize our Second Amendment rights or our sportsman's abilities. It affects everybody across the board.
I feel like that happened even with HB Satan 7. Like it was banning others in open carry. Oh, well, I don't really care about others and I don't open carry.
You still hear
it's another infringement, guys.
It's another infringement. Absolutely.
It's like
I'm for zero infringement. In case anybody has any idea where I stand on the Second Amendment, zero infringement shall not be infringed.
Well, it's like bump stocks. I don't like them, but I fought my butt off to keep them because it's just another piece that they're taking away. I don't think any pieces should be taken away. They've taken enough. I'm good.
They've taken too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've kind of ripped through our bullet points there.
So,
well, we'll expound on all of them.
Right. So how can the average Joe, by looking at your Facebook page or website, how can they get involved? Like what does your organization look for? How would they like?
Are there
people?
Meetings?
No.
Okay.
We're always looking for people to join this fight and testify. And when you look at our webpage, you can see right on there how it'll show you.
So Friends of CT Sportsmen.com.
Correct. And you'll see what's like new today. So we had bear testimony and we had Standard Capacity Magazine testimony in the same room in front of public safety. I'd say 2 weeks ago.
It was an interesting day.
It was an interesting day. It was a very interesting day.
I liked the one woman who said we need to train the bears to stay in the woods. Just saying.
They're different people.
That was a good one.
So, the best part of it was we kind of got wishy-washy testimony from the deep professionals, not this time.
Really?
Not this time. The Deputy Commissioner, Mason Trumbull, came out in strong support of a bear season.
Good.
They brought Jason Hawley with them, the bear biologist, and Justin Davis, the new bureau chief. And they said, we've exhausted all these other things. We tried bear-proof garbage cans. We tried this, taking the bird feeders out. All of that went away. In Massachusetts, where they hunt bears, they had 0 home invasions last year. We had 68 bear home invasions last year.
Here?
In Connecticut. It's a remarkable number. Our bears have absolutely no fear of humans.
So bear comes into my house. I shoot the bear with a 10 mil in the face a few times. What happens to me?
Nothing.
No?
No.
Okay. Good to know.
You're defending yourself.
And this came about from 2 years ago. A young 10-year-old boy was grabbed off a trampoline up in Morris. His grandfather was handicapped. One of the neighbors came over and beat this bear off with a rake.
Really?
Yep. The bear had the child right by the abdomen because when a bear goes to kill you, it doesn't kill you, it eats you. And dying is a byproduct of it, but they say it's excruciating pain up until that time. And it starts at the midsection, eviscerates you. Hopefully you'll die quick.
Was the kid okay?
Did he survive?
Well, he survived.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I can't imagine the level of PTSD he has. You know, you think about a 50 or 60-pound dog that bites you, you know, it's a traumatic experience. You know, you get a bear that's a couple of 100, 300 pounds after you. It's something you'll probably never forget.
I will say I have seen an uptick in manufacturers converting to 10 mils in guns, and I've seen an uptick in sales for 10 mil. So that it's also kind of killed 40 in the same concept. Like they've made more 10 mils and they've stopped making more 40s. At least I've always been told that a 10 mil, I mean, actually, I'll have to be told this, math and physics, the 10 mil has more kinetic energy behind it than a 40, 45, 9 mil, any of that.
Correct. And with a hard cast bullet.
Absolutely.
You know, it's nice to have 15 rather than in one in the chamber rather than 6.
Well, and because the bear are getting more and more brazen. Now, granted, they're losing their territory to live in, but, you know, people keep building houses and stuff like that. And I get that, you know, the whole concept of the thing. But on this, all bears now are getting more and more brazen. I mean, I literally looked out my kitchen window, and I live in a condo. So, like, I'm not out rural at all. And it's a big complex, 210 units, so big. I looked out my kitchen window and there is a bear. He must have been a good 400 pounds. This thing was huge. It was beautiful to look at. I was looking through my window. I was happy, but he's just walking up, like really walking up the main road that everybody, and they're out walking dogs. They're out just walking the neighborhoods. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad I'm in my kitchen.
That's one of my concerns. I have a lot of dogs, fenced in backyard. It's a vinyl fence though.
Right.
And I mean, there's houses behind, there's a house right behind me, and there's houses to the right there.
Doesn't matter.
But once you get into that, there's some woods over there, and there's a giant, I don't know, not really a giant pond, but a pond. And, you know, on the Facebook groups and everything, you see every now and again a bear around the area. And I'm like, I like my dogs more than anything else.
Exactly.
No, they're just they're getting more and more brazen.
Husky, so they're dumb.
You know, and the thing with it is a bear will travel 50 miles in a day. But once a bear decides his house is your house or your house is his house, you got yourself a bear.
Yep. So, and once they find a food source, whether it's a dumpster, whether you've done everything possible, but they found a piece of food, they're coming back. They know where that is.
I'll show you pictures when we get done of a bear up in Salisbury last year that broke into a house 3 days in a row. Then they have video of the bear walking through the kitchen. And this was a 450-pound bear. And
he opened up the fridge?
He did open up the fridge.
They do.
Opened up the fridge, took the garbage out. And what he did was finally they came with a culvert trap to try to live trap him. And while NCON was there, NCON police and DEP staff biologists, the bear broke into the house for the 3rd time in a row. They had to finally shoot it. So contrary to what you'll see people say, they'll say killing the bears doesn't solve the problem. Killing the bears absolutely solves the problem. I guarantee that dead bear is not ever going back in that house again.
Well, and I'm sure he didn't tell his cousins, hey, this house is good. He knew that was his feeding ground. That's where he could get in. You know, it's not like they're getting their posse together and, hey, we're all going to go out.
Well, isn't there an over bear population now too?
There absolutely is. There absolutely is. Bears are reaching, you know, we've gone through exponential growth through a few years now, and I'd say we're getting pretty close to critical mass.
So you, with Friends of Connecticut Sportsmen, you do fishing, trapping, and hunting of all sorts?
Hunting of all sorts.
Okay.
And recreational shooting. We lobby for recreational shooting.
So if you're lobbying for recreational, do you consider that, is that like trap shooting and skeet or?
Skeet, trap, falling plates.
Okay,
Steel
so anything
challenge,
across the board.
Everything with that involves, they're doing a massive renovation project that Worcester Mountain, the state's doing finally now.
Oh, good.
You know, we kind of have an idea what the Pittman Robertson money that comes in every year is.
They should use it.
they should use it. They are using it. They do use it.
Okay.
You know, we had the PR specialist from the state come to our last conservation meeting and gave us a pretty good rundown of how the money's spent.
Okay.
Like he always says, I'm not going to jail to make the state look good. Every penny's accounted for.
Good.
So I'm known him for a long time. I'm very confident in what he says is true.
Awesome.
Back to after this kid and why you can shoot a bear. So when the bear took the kid off the trampoline, at that time you might have, it wasn't written anywhere that you had the right to kill that bear. You could kill that bear if he was eating your livestock, but it never said anything about humans. And when one of our friendly legislators had a talk with the commissioner and the governor, they clarified that, and that's why you saw that bear bill come out last year.
Yep.
And how that there was some clarification. So at least now you can defend yourself without repercussion. There was a gentleman that owns a jiu-jitsu studio up in Canton, I believe you said, Canton or Granby, that had a bear bluff charge him twice. And on the third bluff charge, he said he didn't think he was bluffing anymore. He took him out. He killed him at very close range. And he said, you know, it's one thing to have a dog bark or growl at you. He said, when a 350-pound bear is snapping his jaws and growling at you, it's pretty unsettling.
Well, it goes with the whole definition. You fear for your life.
Fear for your life, exactly.
You know, it's not going to go, just kidding. Oh, so they are getting more and more aggressive, the bears? Because see, the bears back in the day would run away from you.
Bears back in the day, all bears run away from you where they're hunted, where they look at humans as a food source.
Oh.
And now we've got generations. These bears live to be over 30 years old and have multiple litters. Every 2 years they have a litter. And now they're having up to 4 cubs.
Wow, I thought they could only have 2.
No, they have up to 4 now, and it's kind of cool to see them. But you know, there's this other myth that they live in the woods. They live where the food is. So if there's a dumpster next door, they might just den up pretty close to the dumpster, and then they don't have to go too far to get their next meal.
No, they're in my complex.
The dumpsters are there's
Probably a few dumpsters there.
You know what they do is they'll say, well, you have to lock the dumpster. And David T. Wilson, former state rep, testified last week that where he's got 2 dumpsters at his own house. He said the bear just jumped on top of the top till he crushed the top in, and then went and got it.
That's why I laughed. I'm like, the top's plastic. And the thick boys,
But
like, they're just going to break them.
You've seen what black bears have done to cars. If you have food in cars, they just rip that like it was a tin can. Yeah. So any dumpster is not going to stop them.
So, you know, the main things we've been lobbying for is for some kind of bear management plan. And the state has a good management plan, and we're in full support of it.
Okay.
The next thing that we're pushing for is Sunday hunting.
For anything or?
For anything and everything.
Okay.
The fact that it's against the law to hunt on your own property now is one of the most ridiculous things that ever could be thought of.
So what are the hunting rules? So I don't hunt. So what are the hunting rules? So
the hunting rules is on your property, if you wanted to shoot targets, that's okay on your property. But if you shot a squirrel on your property, now you're a criminal because you hunted on Sunday.
Just on Sundays? So if I shot the squirrel on a Saturday, that's okay?
That's okay.
Why Sundays?
Sunday's a day of rest.
Because we're not because the environmental committee forgot that there's supposed to be a separation of church and state.
Yeah.
So if I have the acreage in the land, which I do not have,
but your club might.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're not allowed to hunt on Sunday.
Okay.
They might be allowed to target shoot,
but they can't hunt.
They can't hunt.
That makes sense why the club I belong to during, like, they call it upland game season.
Right.
That's why the regular range is open on Sundays.
Correct.
That makes sense.
That's exactly why.
Yes.
You know, I don't know if I'm in support for that. I like going to the range on Sundays.
Really?
But
really? You're going to do the me, my, it only counts for me?
They're like closed for 3 months.
I don't see why they can't coexist.
Well, it's because they do pheasant hunting. Is that the right kind of bird? Yeah. And they like stock the entire acreage.
Yeah.
It's over there. One of those big ones. It's that way.
Yeah. No, and I get it. And I get where you're
I
get where
probably belong to the same club.
Yeah, you might.
Probably.
But it's one of those things where I get how it would be better for you not
yeah,
to.
no, it's just
but see, that's
fine.
we were just talking about the all inclusive. That's how people do it, and they go, "Well, it's open carry, hunting season, whatever it is. Well, I don't do that, so it doesn't matter." And I get that it's an in
legally that shouldn't be a thing on a Sunday.
Correct. If a club
especially on your own property.
Yeah.
Well, if a club chooses to make certain policies, that's on the club.
Yeah, I'm sure the club would still allow,
but it should be law.
Normal on. I'm sure they wouldn't change that if the law changed. But yeah, I get you.
Good for less
Especially
laws.
on your own property, less control.
But you know, when you look at how most of the property, like state property, and how much Pittman Robertson money has gone in there, and to shut the hunters out on Sunday is just wrong. It's wrong on every level.
Because they're the ones paying for it.
Sense.
At the end of the day,
they paid for all of it.
Yeah, but yet you can't use it.
Can't use it.
But like you were saying with private property and stuff, I mean, look at what they're doing in gun laws. You know, in your own home, how you have to do things. They're in our house. They're on our properties. They're busily jumping in with 2 feet, and it doesn't make me happy. I'll tell you that much.
Shouldn't make anybody happy.
I know people that are like, yay.
So I have a question.
Okay.
I don't know when you do this, but you do like a dinner at the Capitol, like for the legislators, right?
So in the springtime, we've held 3 game tastings. We lost 2 of them during COVID, and all our like, we'll call them sponsoring clubs that are all with us, they'll send a couple guys with a few dishes, and we have a great big game tasting. And what hunting is all about is hunting is not about just killing animals. Hunting is about the whole field to table aspect of it, to eat pure organic meat, to not have to eat food that was processed that you don't know how. A healthier alternative, we'll say. So the animal rights activists constantly complain about a hunt. We only want to hunt bears for trophies. So God bless Brian Lanou at the hearings last week when one of the main AR supporters was talking about, and that's animal rights in this context, was talking about these bears and trophy. He says, Brian says, I don't understand where the trophy comes from. Does the DEP give us a trophy? Is it a gold trophy? What's the trophy look like? I'd like to have a
participation trophy.
You know, what is this trophy you keep talking about? And gratefully, I got to testify after her, and Chairman Boyd said to me, don't you eat bears? I said, of course we eat bears. I said,
that's good.
We've proudly served 250 bear cheddar jalapeno hot dogs with venison chili on them at our game tasting. He says, I had a really good bear meatball here 6 years ago at the first one. I said, hopefully you'll be able to make it back this year. You know, we haven't picked the date yet. I can't tell you when it's going to be. Everybody's welcome to come. It's in a public building. We always have enough to eat. We've had it right in the lobby of the legislative office building, right in the atrium.
Yeah.
It's been a fantastic time.
I went with you, I think, a couple times to that. That was
People
wonderful.
For anyone that hasn't been there before, it's actually pretty easy parking too. The parking garage is right there. I don't know how packed that ever gets. Anytime I've been there, it hasn't been packed. So
not for when he does his thing. It's during legislative session. Like
you go right on in there.
Yeah.
We do it when the environmental committee's there because we want those people to come.
So out of the reps and senators that come there to it, how many are on the left? How many are on the right?
It's split right about down the middle.
It is? Okay.
And it's been really interesting to see it because no matter what you agree or disagree on, having something to eat while you're doing it makes it a lot more palatable.
Does it make them think twice when they eat something that's really good?
I think it does. And I think it makes them understand our position better and that we're not doing this for the trophy benefit of it. We're doing it.
Well, yeah, and you're not doing it maliciously either. Like you're hunting.
Respectfully.
Right? Yeah.
We're all very,
Yeah, they're not trying to take out a species.
I just got a hunter's safety teaching certificate. I just went to the school last week because of this. And I said, people have to understand that it's respect for the animals. Nobody has, and there's no greater conservationists on the planet than hunters.
That is true. They're usually the biggest animal lovers, and they aren't leaving the ones versus like a poacher or something else that are just taking certain pieces. True hunters usually use almost all of it.
Yeah.
We're not there to kill the last one.
No.
You guys have a Facebook group called Friends of Connecticut Sportsmen. And in that group, I've seen you guys doing stuff with Greg Miller and US Law Shield.
Yep.
So you guys, I think, I don't know how recently, but you were going around to other fish and game clubs and doing legislative talks, what safety talks, what was it like Greg doing a seminar?
No, the last ones were about when they changed the gun laws in Massachusetts the last time. You couldn't hunt with semi-automatics, and that pretty much eliminated all the duck hunting and waterfowl hunting from these states. And we didn't want people to go there with their semi-automatic and get jammed up there.
Okay.
That's what those seminars were, just informational to keep people from getting in trouble for using the wrong, we'll say a non-compliant Massachusetts gun that everybody else in the country uses.
Right.
Yeah, because I remember seeing pictures like Eddie Grant was there. I think Cameron Ackerson.
Yep.
I think I said his last name right, was there. Maybe Doug Dubitsky at some point. Yep. I remember seeing the pictures on Facebook. Greg, obviously, I saw a few times.
Yep. I've known Greg for years, long before I got, officially involved in the battle, because we're from the same area.
He's a good guy. Does Doug Dubitsky hunt?
Doug Dubitsky has a farm. Doug
yes.
believes in hunting. I wouldn't say he's a hunter, but he believes in hunting.
Well, I knew he had the farm, and I know all about what he does because we've had our own talks because of my daughter's horse and stuff. But I didn't know if he was an actual hunter too. I mean, he understands he has cattle.
Right.
At the end of the day, those are food.
And we have a big predator problem in our state between coyotes, bobcat.
Mountain
These
lions.
are all alpha predators.
No, absolutely. People don't realize that either, until they actually, because a lot of times, even with the bobcats, you see them walking down the street or you see them come out of the woods, but then they're gone. If you have a farm or if you have a lot of acreage that you're out on, you see these things a lot.
Right.
I mean, I don't have that acreage, but I do back up to the Naugatuck State Forest.
Right.
I saw a whole family of bobcats. It was really pretty to see. Again, they were in the woods. I like it that way. But it was really cool. It was a mom and 3 babies.
Yep.
And they were bouncing around and she's trying to keep them in line. It was really cool. I don't want to see them close up though.
Yeah, until they come rip your face off.
See, that's not what I want to see.
Yeah.
I take pictures from the woods, from my window.
So I'd like to recognize the other directors of Friends of Connecticut.
Yeah.
Connecticut Sportsmen. It's Dean Rustick from Bass Nation, Joe Laporta that I mentioned earlier, Chaz Catania, Bill Hyatt, the former bureau chief of DEP, Chris Marino that owns Autumn Gun Works up in Goshen. That's also the secretary of the Northwest Council, huge supporters of ours, and Mike Ose, former president of Rockville Fish and Game.
So you guys have a pretty stacked group.
You have guys that have been around this for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. And all of you are the ones that I know off of that, which are a couple of them. All of them are all involved in hunting and fishing and all that kind of stuff. That's awesome. And have been for a long time, if not generations.
Most of us have been in all our lives.
When did you first go hunting? I just need to ask.
So I was about 8 years old. The first time I started going hunting, my uncles would take me and I'd walk along with them and bird hunt and just be the persistent kid that I still am today. Uncle Pete.
Because you bird hunt more than anything else, right?
Yeah, well, I hunt everything. But
okay.
Let me shoot the gun. I want to shoot the gun. Let me shoot the gun. Let me shoot the gun. So the director of hunter safety said to me the other day, he says, "Do you remember your first experience?" I said, "I remember it like it was yesterday." It was probably 60 years ago. "What'd you shoot?" I said, "I shot the top off an old paint can." I said, I had an Ithaca. My uncle had an Ithaca model 37th light gun. Always shoot 12 gauge high brass, so to make sure that it give me a pretty good rock. My mouth was bleeding a little bit. My hand hurt.
You couldn't wait to do it again.
Just about knocked me down. If I lost him a couple of years ago, I'd say, "What do you think, Uncle Pete?" He says, "Yeah, I got about 5 minutes of peace and quiet out of it before you start it again, and it just, the fascination has never worn off for me. I'd love to watch a dog go on point. I love to shoot birds.
Yep. Well, and you actually, like we were talking about, and you use it. You feed yourself with it.
I fed the whole legislature last year. We had really good kielbasa made out of the pheasants with peppercorns and cheddar cheese in it. It was really good. Our menu is fantastic at this game tasting. I hope some people will want to participate after seeing this podcast and come up. I hope you'll come, Josh. It's a great time.
I was just gonna say maybe we go do a podcast on the road.
We could.
Go take Nick.
Yeah.
We get the little Bluetooth mics.
Yeah. It's good. The food. I am always like, I grew up eating different things. My grandfather always hunted, so you never knew what the meat really was going to be. And usually he wouldn't tell you until after you ate it because he didn't want you going, ew, you know. And as I got older, that changed. But when I was younger, and, you know, it's one of those things where I'm always amazed at how much you can make, because the person who, like, I don't hunt, but I've been around it enough. But people that don't hunt that I talk to, they're like, that wouldn't taste good. It's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal.
Like an elk, I know we can't get that here, but that is the bomb right there. And they make all different things. It's not just meat, like stew meats, like you hear venison stew, venison stew, venison stew. You can make so much with venison, and you can do so much with the birds and all that kind of stuff. And I love going to game dinners because you're always getting something a little different, because somebody brings their recipe into it, which is really awesome.
Last year at the Legislative Office building, like if you see a nice prosciutto where they put it on a stand, I had 2 smoked venison legs, and we put them on the stand and had guys slice them off, slice by slice, right off the whole leg. And it just looked cool. And it was very, really, very, really good.
That must have been awesome.
It was great.
I had venison. They corned it like corned beef.
Yeah.
So they cured it that way. So it was like venison corned beef. That was really good. I was kind of skeptical on that. I wasn't sure about it, but no, it was slamming.
Even goose meat's really good corned like that.
You gave me smoked breast.
Yep.
Which were really
pastrami,
good. Yes.
Really, really good.
Have you had?
I've never had any of this, guys.
That was my next question. Have you ever
had venison? Okay.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Oh, we're gonna have to
I
make
like
that
steak.
happen.
Steak's good.
Steak is steak.
Chicken's good.
We'll have to make it happen.
But like,
Yeah, true. Well,
nope. I don't know.
I'll feed you some sometime.
I'm sure at some point. So Craft Kitchen in Southington, they've been like doing little game dinner things, and we like sponsored the last one, but it was my anniversary and the wifey and I were in Niagara Falls, so I did not go to that.
I'm gonna
Brian
get you.
and Nick did.
I'm gonna get you to go to a game dinner. We're gonna go to a game dinner.
I mean,
we'll do the tasting too, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you to go to a game dinner too. They feed you so much. I mean, I have to be careful now, but you'll enjoy it.
Our game tasting.
You have a cheat day.
Our game tasting, the legislature says that's the best event of the year.
Well, because you have all
Everybody
different
comes.
clubs bringing their aspect to it.
Their specialty.
Yeah, it's really good.
So
We'll go.
what I'm hearing is we can bribe legislators with food.
Not really, because they don't always vote that way.
But they'll enjoy the free food.
What
Yes.
you could do is you could have a civil conversation with people that you don't usually get near.
Because it's much more intimate. I mean, it can get very big, but it's a more intimate environment than just
Yeah.
trying to go to the LOB. You're getting them.
And go into somebody's
eating-
office.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate that Senator Austin is the chair of the Sportsmen's Caucus, her and Daphne, and they're just the best, both of them together. And Senator Austin always comes and enjoys herself, and she does way more for us than I would ever admit.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Anything else? Anything else you want to add?
Do you have anything you want to
I
add?
think I'm good. Friends at ctsportsman.com.
And you've been doing that forever, and then you're involved all over the place. So you put a lot of time into all this, and I thank you very much for your time, because that helps all of us, and we need people like you doing this.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to coming
Thanks
again.
for coming on. Friends of Connecticut Sportsmen Facebook group. And then I started going down a rabbit hole on your website. And then friendsofctsportsman.com.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Get
involved.
Yeah, definitely. I'm Josh.
I'm Michele.
And
I'm Keith.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Lock and Load Podcast is sponsored by Lock and Load Firearms, Connecticut's #1 rated gun store and pistol permit class on Google. Come check us out, 1573 Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Southington. Lock and Load Firearms.
Lock and Load Podcast is also sponsored by Patriot Wear Holsters.
Custom-made Kydex holsters locally made in Waterbury, Connecticut. www.patriotwearholster.com and use code LNL Podcast for 10% off your purchase. Orders available for shipping or pickup at various locations.